Here's the good news. You probably get a lot of presentations and people come in and talk down to you and try to scare you and say drugs are bad, you're gonna die, right? That's not my style. My style is, I'm just gonna give you some information and you can do whatever you want with it. You know, I remember being in high school and I hated when people talked down to me. I hated when people treated me like a child. Like even though I was young, when I was 15, 16, 17, I felt like a grown man. I was like, don't talk down to me, don't talk to me like that. I already had some life experiences. And so I've been doing this for about 6 years. I've spoke to thousands of students and teachers, and I've changed my style. I used to be like the scared straight, rah, rah, New Bedford drug addict, criminal, rah, you're gonna die, right? And kids just roll their eyes at you. They're like, you're ridiculous, it's never gonna happen to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember when I was in high school just smoking a little weed and people would come in and I'd be like, this dude's ridiculous. This is never gonna happen to me. So like that whole style doesn't work. So my thing is like, I think of young adults. I'm gonna give you respect. I'm gonna talk to you like humans. I'm not gonna talk down to you and threaten you and be all like condescending. I just ask for the same respect. You know, this is short. It's only like a half hour. You know, it's hard to sit still. I was a super spaz, super ADHD, weed smoker in high school. I would clown people like me. Please don't clown me. You know, take it easy on me. You might get fidgety. You might be tapping your friend. I'm just gonna look at you. I'll just like make eye contact. Like, just chill. Like, let's get through this together. It'll be good. It won't be a big deal. We're gonna hopefully have some fun, learn some information. Because my thing is like this. Even when I was smoking weed and I thought it wasn't a big deal, I knew other people that had like real issues, right? And some of the stuff I say might be triggering. So know you got a great team of adjustment counselors and the principal and people that have your back. I know some of you have family members that are affected by addiction, and I'm sorry for your loss if some of you have lost people you love. That's the reality. Like some of the stuff I say may be triggering. But my goal is like to just give you some information. And like if it don't apply to you, you're like, this is ridiculous, it'll never be me. Maybe if you know someone that's already going down the road, you can use this information to help them. Right? Because if you've ever seen someone struggling with drugs, you're like, I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know what to say to them. If you got younger siblings or cousins that are like in middle school or freshmen, sophomores, and they're starting to like experiment with the vape or the Zyn or the whatever, like just saying don't do it, you're gonna die is ridiculous. It doesn't work. So this presentation is a bunch of slides. I'm not gonna do them all, but the presentation is aimed at giving you some information to maybe make good decisions or help someone else, right? Because here's the thing, don't do it, you're gonna die is not true. A lot of kids I went to school with smoke weed and they became successful people. Smoking weed doesn't mean you're gonna die, it's not true. Drink alcohol, you're gonna be an alcoholic, it's not true. We don't know who's gonna go off the rails, often until it's too late. So my thing is like, why shouldn't I drink or smoke weed? And that's a couple of things I want to talk about today. So I'm gonna throw a couple of questions out there, get you guys involved, so I'll put you to sleep and I'll talk at you. Also, I'm gonna hang out for a little bit in the cafeteria after this. So if anybody has a question or a comment, and you don't want to raise your hand in here or whatever, I don't know if we'll even have enough time for questions at the end. We'll see how it goes. But come talk to me. I'm gonna be hanging out there because all this stuff is great. Yeah, I got certificates. I'm a certified interventionist. I'm a certified recovery coach. I'm a certified family coach. I just wrapped up an MBA. I've worked in the field of addiction for 12, 13 years now, and all that's great. I have professional experience. I work for a great organization that has like a teenage mental health program. So young people, 12 to 18, have anxiety, depression. We do dog-assisted, animal-assisted therapy. And the reality is most of the kids we see are not even using drugs. It's depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. Like young people are kind of struggling, and I'm able to help them. And that's all great. But the reality is all I am is a person in long-term recovery. That's the only thing I offer. Like the shirt and tie is just out of respect for the school. I know I look like a detective. I know I'm old. I know I'm not cool. I'm not hip. I'm not going to try to be cool. I'm not going to try to be hip. I'm not going to try to use your lingo. Like I'm an old dude. That's cool. I'm okay with that. But what I am is a person in long-term recovery, and what that means is like, I started smoking weed in 7th grade. That's not most people's experience. It was no big deal in 7th grade, and I continued to make some decisions, and I started smoking weed through high school, and then alcohol, and then pills, and then blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I'm 22 years old, and I'm addicted to heroin, 22, 23. And it's like, how the hell did that happen? You know what I'm saying? I had fun for a lot of years. High school was fun. I had fun in high school. And then I crossed the line, and like, The pills came out, I started taking the pills, and the Oxycontin, and the heroin, and it was like, boom. Like, how did that happen? And I pretty much almost destroyed my life. Like, this isn't everyone's story, and I'm not trying to scare you, but like, as a result of the bad decisions I made, I've been arrested over 12 times. Like, I started getting arrested at 16 years old for smoking weed in public, then it was shoplifting, then it was fighting, then it was selling weed, then it was coke charges, gun charges, B&Es, all that. And I'm not proud of it, I'm not trying to like sound cool, I'm not cool. But like, as a result of making bad decisions as a young person, I've been arrested over 12 times. I've been jumped, I've been shot at, I've been stabbed in the back, literally punctured lung, hospitalized, almost died. I turned 25 in the Dartmouth House of Correction, and I overdosed 3 times and almost died all 3 times, was brought back to life. And again, I'm not trying to scare you because I don't think I can scare young people, because the part of the brain that says, oh, this is scary, it ain't working yet. But this is just my experience. And this is not gonna happen to you, and it doesn't have to happen to you. But if you're asking yourself, why should I listen to this dude? That's my resume. My resume is like, I had fun, it crossed the line, it became unfun, and I almost died multiple times. So I just try to share some info with people. Like, maybe you can make better decisions. Maybe you can help someone else make better decisions. At a minimum, I know when I was in active addiction, I never knew anyone that got out of it. So if I do nothing else today, if you know someone or love someone that's struggling, you've now met a heroin addict in recovery. I've been in recovery since July 2nd, 2010. I'm coming up on 14 years without drinking, without alcohol. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that for the people that probably at this point, like, hate someone that keeps struggling, right? Because when you watch someone struggle, you're like, yo, I'm done with this person. And you give up on them. And at a minimum, I hope you walk away here knowing, like, people can come back. People can recover. But it doesn't happen magically. Like, I was broken and I went to long-term treatment. I accepted help and I got better. But it's a disease that wants to kill me. And I believe it's like any other disease, it's treatable. And 13 years later, I'm still in recovery. I still pray and go to meetings and play golf and do self-care and work on my emotional regulation. And I do positive, mindful things to keep me with a positive attitude. Like, I'm still in recovery. And what I found is most people that seek recovery, they only find abstinence. And because abstinence is so uncomfortable, they cannot remain in recovery. And what that means is drugs and alcohol are not the problem. And you're not going to hear this from a lot of people. What? I thought this was a drug and alcohol thing, right? Nope. Because what I learned about myself is drugs and alcohol are not the problem. The problem is, left off drugs and alcohol, you take the weed away from me, take the alcohol away, now we got a problem. Because when I'm sober, prior to being in recovery, anxiety, anger, fear, trauma, been through some stuff. I've seen some stuff. I don't trust people. I don't like people. People that are supposed to have my back did not have my back. Right? Trauma comes in all forms. It doesn't have to be so dramatic. Like, if at a young age, someone you trust and someone you love said, I will do this for you on Tuesday. And on Tuesday came and they didn't do it, I don't trust you. First trust issue. And if you don't trust someone you love, how am I going to trust you strangers? Right? And that's how it started for me. Insecurity, low self-esteem. I was like a little kid. I didn't crack 6 feet until after high school. So I had that little insecurity, like, you know, that Napoleon syndrome, like the Chihuahuas, like, bah, 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 bah. They get all crazy. Because I was like this little Chihuahua. And I felt like everybody was picking on me and disrespecting me because I was like the runt of the litter. And to compensate for that, I had to flex. You know what I'm saying? You gotta swell up. You gotta be aggressive. You gotta attack first. And I'm not encouraging that. But the truth is, that works sometimes. So at a young age, I learned very unhealthy coping mechanisms. I learned how to snap back and be witty with the tongue and make fun of other people and be a class clown and be aggressive and hang around with older people. And I acted tough and I acted like I was cool. But the truth is, I was just a scared little kid. People had hurt me, people had taken advantage of me, people had picked on me, people had disrespected me, and it hurt. But no one taught me to talk about my feelings. Men don't cry. You ever hear like, you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. Like, bro, that's not helpful. Like, I kind of need to process this uncomfortable thing I went through today. You know? And I grew up in that era that was like, yo, you don't cry, you don't show feelings, you don't show emotions. Men are supposed to act this way. And so I bottled it all up. And again, I had no healthy way to deal with my emotions, to deal with my feelings. We may not even do the slides at all. How about that? Because what I do, I believe in the spirit. I believe in a higher power of the universe. I'm not super religious, but if you believe in God, what I believe is like as a result of recovery, some kind of fire has been lit in my spirit. And I show up and I ask the universe to work through me. And I just go where it goes. If you saw me in 5 presentations, they would all be different. Because my goal is to show up and be authentic and look you in the eyes and just share some of myself with you and not be the robot reading every slide, the clear eyes guy. Hi guys, my name is Kevin Rosario, and today we will discuss substance use prevention through... bro, we can see it. I can read the slide. Next slide, please. Right? You ever have that? Oh, it's annoying. It's not real. It's not real. We're dealing with real people and real emotions and being authentic people. And that's just what I want to do. So I'm going to hit a couple slides because there's a couple things that I think are important. One, like I said, I know I look like a detective, so you probably don't believe me, but I was young at one point. And there's the proof. This is 13-year-old Kevin Rosario. Yes, that is a rayon shirt. You guys don't know about rayon. Rayon was hip at that time. Got the puff paint in the background. Yes, it glowed in the dark as well. So serious stuff. And I know this is not your experience, maybe some of you. Some of you, I look in your eyes, you got a little twinkle in your eye already. You can see it, won't call you out. But for me, I started smoking in 7th grade. This is 7th grade, 8th grade. And it was no big deal. So if any of you are experimenting, you're probably laughing at me, whatever, bro, it'll never be me. That was me right there. Junior high school, thought I was the man, smoking a little weed, no big deal. But a few years later, things started to progress. And this damn clicker's got a bad attitude. There it is. So you can't see, but now I got the pinky rings and the gold bracelet with the matching necklace. I have a Corona in my left hand. Now I'm smoking weed every day. I'm selling weed. I gotta watch the time because we have limited time here. And I can tell you here, I'm still just having fun. This is your age group, 17. And that why I chose this picture, although it's graphic, and I'm sorry if anyone is offended that my shirt is off. Right? We'll talk to your counselors after. But this is my inner animal. This I feel like at 44 years old, when someone messes with me, or I'm not taking care of my spirit, that's the guy. Like, ah, like inside, I want to kill him. I'm not okay. Like that guy's the problem right there. Left untreated, I got anxiety and anger and fear and trust issues, and I'm hyperactive, and I'm like tense. I'm not okay, right? Weed and alcohol did something for me at this age. Weed and alcohol helped take the edge off. Weed and alcohol helped me breathe a little bit. I didn't learn breathing techniques. I didn't learn mindfulness. I didn't learn coping skills. I didn't learn de-escalation. I didn't learn how to have an adult conversation when someone was in disagreement with my beliefs. It was anger, it was violence, it was drugs, it was alcohol. And that's not a healthy strategy because at this age, it was still fun. But the problem is, like, you build a tolerance, right? Who knows what a tolerance is? What's a tolerance? What does building a tolerance mean? You did it. You raised your hand. It's okay. Go ahead.
Like how you deal with it, like you're...
Want to phone a friend? What do you got? Nope.
Like how much you can handle.
Boom, there it is. Round of applause right there. Good job. She totally did not think I was going to put the mic in her face. It's real nerve-wracking, right? So tolerance means just that, you build a tolerance. Your body, I don't care if it's exercising, like you get used to doing 80 pounds, 90 pounds, 150 pounds, right? Your body gets used to it, you can do more and more. In the world of tolerance with drugs and alcohol, what it really means is What it really means is, in 7th and 8th grade, I just smoked a little weed and I was like high out of my tree, right? But as time went on, I could smoke more weed and stronger weed and not get as high. And so in high school now, I'm smoking more weed and drinking more alcohol, and now all of a sudden it's like Cool Blue, peppermint schnapps, Hennessy, stronger liquor, and then all of a sudden I built a tolerance to that, and now my friends are like, oh, we got Xanax and Valium and Klonopin and these other pills, and I started taking that. And here's the hit though, I never wanted to get more high. I just wanted that original little buzz that takes the edge off, that helps me deal with life. But as time goes on, whatever you're doing, if you're doing it, it's not going to do it for you anymore. Your body's going to build a tolerance. So if you don't find a healthy way to deal with anxiety and depression and low self-esteem and trauma and whatever's hurting your spirit, if you don't find a healthy way to deal with it, eventually it's going to deal with you. Because the weed is not sustainable. You can only get so strong on the weed. You can get up to the resins and get real crazy if you want, 92% THC. And here's the other hit. Everybody's like, oh, weed, it's just weed. I'm like, weed? Oh, I get more calls for kids that are psychotic, 12, 13, 14, like legit seeing things, hearing things, having psychotic episodes, needing to be put in a locked psychiatric hospital just because of weed. Just weed. Because the weed and the edibles and the resins are like so much stronger than the weed that was out back in the day, that like young people with no history of like mental illness are having like psychotic breaks. So like really prevention, my goal again is like not to scare you. And it's not to say don't do drugs, drugs are bad, you're gonna die. It's like real prevention is about how do we deal with the reason why people want to use drugs in the first place? If it didn't do something for you, you wouldn't do them. So whatever is your why, if you're using or if you know someone that's using, right, might apply to your cousin or a friend or family member. The real thing is like, all right, what do you get out of it? Oh, it helps me with anxiety, depression, it helps me with racing thoughts, it helps me sleep, whatever it is. Okay, great. Then the solution is not to just stop. Because if you just stop, you're not going to be okay. The solution is, how do we replace the unhealthy thing with a healthy thing? How do I learn coping skills? How do I learn how to breathe and pause and process and sleep? Because if you don't, and again, I'm not trying to scare you, this is just my story. I told you from the beginning, like I spun out pretty bad. But like 17, it was all good. 18, 19, I started messing around with the pills. 20, 21, Percocets. 22, Oxycontin came out. You may have heard of that. By 23, I'm addicted to heroin. Again, probably doesn't hit because your brains are like, this dude's stupid, this will never be me. And I'm not saying it's going to be you. But if you know anyone that's addicted, most people don't leave high school and shoot heroin in the parking lot. Right? It's not the 5-year plan. Most people start with just the weed, just the alcohol. There's a slide in here that says 93% of people addicted to heroin report they didn't start with heroin. Right? Who starts with heroin? Who wants to shoot heroin? Who wants to smoke crack? Who wants to be homeless? Who wants to be in jail? Nobody. So why do they do it? Why would they do it? It's a great question. I don't know if I need new batteries in this thing, but it bothers me that I have to come all the way up here just to change my slides. So how did this happen? I already told you about it, right? Maybe this helps you understand why other people become addicted. But for me, insecurity, low self-esteem. I went to multiple schools. Like, my parents were always fighting. There was this negative energy in the house all the time, fighting over money. My father was drinking. My mother wanted me to go to a better school. So instead of being in, like, the school in my district, she sent me to another school. And it was like, you know, across the street from the projects. I was, like, the minority. I felt like I didn't fit in. Right off the rip, I'm, like scared. And then that comes into anger. And then you throw in low self-esteem, ADHD, hyperactive. Like, I remember being young, and I would get spun up, and I don't know if anybody can identify with this. Like, how you going? How you going? I go, and I'm like, wow! Like, I get tweaked out. That, like, I don't stop until I crash into a wall. Like, you remember the old cartoon, like, the Tasmanian Devil? You're like, blah, 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 blah. Like, spins around, crashes, destroys everything. Like, that's how I felt. Like, I would get so hyper and so anxious and so ramped up. Like, the teachers and the principal would be like, Kevin, please just chill out. And I'm like, I can't. I'm so whacked out. And I feel like if I didn't find drugs at a young age, I probably would have gotten more trouble, as crazy as that sounds. because I was so manic and so uncomfortable and so angry and so anxious that temporarily it took the edge off. And I thought I was going to be okay. I thought it was going to be helpful. I thought I could manage it. But the truth is, like, it got out of control on me, and I became a full-blown drug addict. The other big thing I want to talk about quickly is genetic predisposition. Does anyone know what genetic predisposition is? I know you know. Who wants to raise their hand, though? Do I see any hands? Stop playing. I'll pick a random. Genetic predisposition? What does it mean? Go back there? Go ahead. Yell it out.
It's so if your parents have had a drug addiction or have alcohol thing, you as a child are more likely to fall to that.
Boom. Done. Applause. Round of applause for that person. Perfect. Great job. High five to the teachers that covered that in class. At least one student remembered. And I know more of you know it. You just rather not participate, because I definitely would not have participated, so I'm not mad at you if you don't want to. But that's the truth. Genetic predisposition just means that you are genetically predisposed to something, which just means you're at an increased risk. It's not limited to drugs and alcohol. If you go to a doctor, they ask you, does hypertension, heart disease, asthma, diabetes, do any of these things run in your family? They don't ask you because they're bored. They ask you because science demonstrates that if certain things run in your family, you're at an increased risk. You know how you look like your mom or your dad, you got their eyes, you got their hair, you got their nose, all that's genetics. Well, it's the same thing with drugs and alcohol. So if drugs and alcohol run in your family, you're at an increased risk. Oh. So why is it that, like, when I went to high school with some kids that smoked weed and they became successful humans, and I ended up in detox in jail? Because some of my friends didn't have all this stuff. They didn't have family issues. They didn't have fighting at home. They didn't have ADHD. My family, alcoholism and drug addiction on both sides of my family. And not my mother. My mother was like a good citizen. She like graduated New Bedford High School with honors. She was like the head payroll clerk at the New Bedford Fire Department. She was like the Lifetime Movie Network mom. You know what I'm saying? Life is what you make it, Kevin. The glass is always halfway full. Da 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 da. Rainbows and bullshit all day. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me, sorry. Sorry about that. I made it through the first presentation without swearing, and that was like a B- swear, so keep it together, people. But that was my mom. You guys know what I'm talking about. You guys hear way worse every day in your little ear pods, right? Let's go. So, my mom was like this happy, spiritual, loving, caring, kissing, hugging, supportive, Lifetime Movie Network mom. But what mom never told me is that her dad died of alcoholism, and my father's dad died of alcoholism. When they would be like, Kevin, trying to talk to me about smoking weed and drinking, this is how they talk to me. You can't do it. Why? Oh, it's illegal. Not a good excuse. You can't do it, Kevin. You just can't do it. Why? Because we said so. Not a good excuse, right? And I'm not blaming them. They weren't armed with the facts. They had no real information. They never told me, oh, because it runs in our family, and like this could take you out. They never told me about the brain. They never told me about, like, if I don't find a healthy way to treat my ADHD and my insecurity, like, I'll become addicted. They didn't know. You know, my mom was like this super sweet, optimistic, like, blissful person. And what she didn't know is she did not know how to help me. And so now you guys are young adults. I said that from the beginning. I don't think you're kids. You're young adults. So if you got stuff going on, you might not be able to rely on mom, dad, or caregiver to like save the day. You might have to talk to professionals. You might have to have professionals refer you to other professionals, because the reality is most people don't know how to deal with this. Unless they've been through it themselves, they can't identify. Like if you're going through whatever you're going through, anxiety, depression, anger, fear, trauma, sexual identity stuff, body image stuff, like there's so much going on in the world. I'm just saying, don't do it alone. Get professionals. Because I go home, like, Ma, you don't understand, things are crazy at school today, blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, well, Kevin, you know you're judged by the company you keep. I'm like, thanks, Ma, appreciate that. My kid got stabbed on the way to school today, you know what I'm saying? And like, she just didn't get it. And I felt like not heard. You ever feel like just no one hears you? Like you got something on your chest, you want help, you want to talk about it. And they shut you down and they dismiss you and they throw you aside. Oh, grow up, do this, do that. That doesn't work. If you got feelings and you got issues, you need to find a healthy way to process them. And if the people immediately in your life are not capable, doesn't mean they don't love you. They just don't know how to deal with it. Like, talk to people. I don't work for them. I'm not trying to sell them. I'm just saying, like, I didn't know about adjustment counselors and therapists and coping skills. And it was like, bottle it up, deal with it, grow up, be a man. If you don't like someone, punch them in the face. Forget, we'll deal with it later. It's not real life. You can't just punch people in the face. You can't run from all your problems. You can't, like, hide in the basement and smoke weed till you pass out because you had a bad day. Those are not healthy coping skills. So, sorry if I get a little tweaked out. It's because I'm passionate about this. And I've seen so many people die because we just didn't have this information. And people don't give us platforms sometimes to express ourselves. Or maybe there was no resources, or whatever. Or maybe people minimize. Like, I deal with parents sometimes, like, oh, Kev, my kid's a good kid. He just smokes weed. I'm like, yeah, no doubt. I just smoked weed too. Why is your kid smoking weed? Why? What is he getting out of it? Okay, great. Weed's not the problem. Kids get anxiety. Kids got anger issues. Kids pissed off at you. You haven't been a great mom. Fine. Let's deal with that. It's real, right? You guys have stuff that's going on. You've experienced stuff. Whatever it is, it's not about blaming. It's about what's really going on with me. And, like, what's a healthy way to deal with that? Because I'm telling you, I promise you, I'm not judging you if you smoke weed or vape or whatever you got going on. I have empathy for you. But I challenge you to find some other way to deal with that because it's going to turn on you. Right? I don't know, guys. All I know is this. I'm one of the lucky ones that made it out. You guys are going to do whatever you're going to do. And, like, my goal is, like, just planting seeds. Right now, you might be dismissing me. Maybe it don't land. Maybe you think of someone else. I just hope that somewhere in the future, maybe if you see someone that's struggling or you start to have your own experience, maybe you'll remember some of this. You'll remember some of the stuff the teachers taught you. Because the good news is, there are a lot of resources. There's more resources today than there ever were. So if you actually want help, if you want to help getting off the vape or the pouch or whatever you got going on, if you smoke weed all day, every day, it's the only thing you can do to not be in a desperate depression, like, there's people that can help you with that, So I gotta fly because we only got, like, 8 minutes left. Like, this doesn't land with you guys. The parents and the teachers did this, but a lot of people have passed as a result of overdose deaths. So addiction, you guys know what addiction is. What's examples of other things people get addicted besides drugs? It's not just drugs and alcohol. What else are people addicted to? What is it? Gambling. Round of applause. Get the man's phone. If he's got black things on his phone. Keep an eye on him. Who else? Is that a hand up or are you stretching over there? Oh, hands down. What else are people addicted to? There's a lot of stuff. It's not just drugs and alcohol. What do you got? Just yell it out. What is it? Self-harm. Round of applause. Not for the self-harm, for the participation. What else? Yes. Phones. Round of applause. Somebody said spending money. You, round of applause for this person. Obsessive compulsive, tweet that on Amazon. There's a box on your porch right now, I'm sure. Who else? Smoking. Round of applause. Give them. Yep. Oh.
Video games?
Video games. Round of applause. Caffeine. More rounds of applause. All right, no more applause. I'm going to wrap this thing up. You guys are great. Correct. Round of applause. People are addicted to porn. Not a hard coping mechanism. No more examples. No more examples. You guys are great. You guys are the upperclassmen. You can handle this. Right? No big deal. Okay. So it's good. We're almost done. So it's good. It's not just drugs and alcohol. People get addicted to all these things. The common link between all these things is two things. One, it's often a mental obsession, right? All you think about it. All you think about is the video game. All you think about is eating, gambling, whatever it is. My man, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But the same. Mental obsession, it becomes a distraction, and it can interfere with other parts of your life. So that's one part of the disease of addiction and the different addictions. Here's the other thing. Most people have addictions to things that release dopamine. Sex, gambling, eating, exercise, gaming, being obsessed about like the likes and shares and everything on your little page, on your little reels, it releases dopamine. Anyone know what dopamine does? Makes you feel good. Correct. It is a chemical in your brain that makes you feel good. Here's the trap. The trap is this. Some people are just more hardwired to become addicted, and here's why. The brain releases this chemical dopamine. It's supposed to be a thing that tells us this is a good thing, right? You've heard of fight or flight, right? When you're approached with danger. Something you don't learn. Believe in God, science, the universe, whatever you want to believe in. Early caveman people, when approached with danger, they run or they fight. That's a survival tactic. If you freeze, you probably die. It was natural. You don't have to learn it. Same thing with the limbic system. It's not something you don't get credit for. It's a part of the brain that releases a chemical that's supposed to reinforce the behavior we need to keep the human race alive. Eating, exercising, right? Making love with your significant other after college, those things. No, having sex, right? You have to have sex to make more humans. So like sex, eating, laughing, exercising, these are certain things that the human race needs to survive, right? So those things, when you do those things, the brain releases dopamine. It's called a reinforcement chemical. Because things that feel good, like a puppy getting a treat, we're more likely to repeat the behavior. So here's the bad news. Vaping, the Zins, weed, alcohol, anything, cigarettes, the cartridges, whatever, any form of any chemical, nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, THC, it releases like 2,000 times more dopamine than eating, laughing, exercising, or having sex, which tricks your brain into thinking this is a good thing for our survival. So people don't really get addicted to drugs. People get addicted to dopamine. That's why a lot of those addictions have a lot of similarities. It's not about a substance. It's about getting that chemical release, getting that chemical release, getting that chemical release. A lot of people get a chemical release in a lot of different ways. Cutting releases a chemical. Super unhealthy coping mechanism, but I know why. The person doesn't feel good. The person is looking for a boost in dopamine so they can feel better. So people don't get addicted to drugs, people get addicted to dopamine. But the lower drugs only give you a little dopamine. And once you build a tolerance to those drugs, you need stronger drugs. So if you're relying on outside third-party dopamine just to feel okay, bad news. It's not gonna last. Your body will fight it off and you'll build a tolerance. And next thing you know, you need stronger and stronger stuff. And you hear this a lot, people end-stage addiction. They're like, I'm drinking all day, I'm smoking weed all day, and I'm still depressed, and I'm still angry, and I still got anxiety. That sucks, right? If whatever you're doing now like helps you feel okay, imagine you're doing all that stuff and you still are not okay. That's just natural. So the reality is, you gotta find a way to feel okay now. And again, I believe this prevention work, this education work, it's like plant some seeds, give you some info, do what you want with it. Maybe it don't apply to you, maybe you can help someone else. But real prevention work is not about scaring people into not using drugs. Real prevention work is identifying and being honest with the fact that some people are not okay. Some people have experienced some heavy life stuff. And if we don't help them feel okay, if we don't help people find peace and regulation and like process some of that pain, then they're probably not gonna be okay. Prevention work is not about not using drugs. Prevention work is about doing the work and providing the resources and giving people an opportunity to work on themselves so they don't need drugs and alcohol. That's why recovery is also not about not using drugs and alcohol. Recovery is not about abstinence. Recovery is about once you take drugs and alcohol away from a person like me at 31 years old, guess what? I got 13-year-old coping skills. I got anxiety, depression, anger, fear, trauma. I hate my parents. I don't trust people. I got a broke brain. I got impulse issues. Like at 31, when I got into recovery for like the 9th time, I was not okay. I didn't leave detox and like, oh, thank God I'm off the heroin, like I'm okay now. No, not okay. So recovery is about once a person gets off the drugs and alcohol, how do we help them heal? How do we help them find coping skills? How do we help them process trauma? People that go in and do the real work stay in recovery. People that just choose abstinence don't often stay in recovery because the pain and the racing thoughts, they can only hang on for so long. So because I learned about what real recovery is not abstinence, my focus on prevention work is like, how do we love people up? How do we give them resources? How do we give them an opportunity to vent? How do we give them an opportunity to be heard? Because resilient, healthy, happy people don't need drugs and alcohol. That's the truth. And I'm not clowning you if you're using. I know you're getting something out of it, and I get that. But I'm telling you, it's not sustainable in the long run. So we have to fast forward. We're almost done. You guys are all at risk. We can skip the slide, you know what I'm saying? Anyone under the age of 18 is at risk. Adverse childhood experiences, it's heavy, I'm not going to get into it, but the science says people that have had adverse childhood experiences, which can be parents got divorced, you moved more than 3 times before 18, physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, right? One parent is an alcoholic or an addict, both parents, one died. It could be a long list of things, but the science says the more of these experiences you've had, the more likely you are to become addicted. It makes a lot of sense because people that are in pain are seeking relief. So the more pain you've experienced, the more likely you are to misuse or mishandle drugs because you're trying to treat that pain. So again, I know I keep saying it, but like, it's inhumane to just take drugs and alcohol away from people. And if you're one of those people that's experimenting, you're like, yo, you'll fight to the death over it because you think it's the only thing keeping you together. I agree. I'm not just trying to take it away. I'm saying, let's treat the actual problem in a holistic way so that you don't have to feel that way. So if you've been through some stuff, I get it. Just gotta be careful because you're more likely to go down the rabbit hole. Limbic system we talked about, that's where the dopamine comes from. Prefrontal cortex, real quick. Okay. 10 past. So here's the why. This is one of the last whys, and then I'll go to the next slide. When people say you should consider, this is all I'll say, if you haven't experimented yet, and you haven't been approached yet, you 100% will be. Between the prom and the summer, and the question is like, why wouldn't I? And that's one of the most simple answers is because the brain. The front of the brain, here you go. You're welcome, friend. The front of the brain is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, risk assessment. Like the part of the brain that's responsible to help us make good decisions is not fully developed till the mid-20s. If you stop vaping, smoking, or using alcohol, any kind of substance, it stops that part of the brain from growing. Which means, you guys are doing great. We only got 5 more minutes, and then you can like run around and be crazy. You guys have done better than I would have, right? So I appreciate you. You guys have been super respectful. We're almost done. Last 2 points. The why you should consider not using drugs and alcohol is because the brain's not fully developed yet. And it perfectly aligns with my story. 12, 13, experiment with drugs, underdeveloped brain, guess what happens? I became a crash dummy because the part of the brain that helps you make good decisions was not developed yet. So what did I do? I kept making bad decisions. All those arrests, most of them had nothing to do with using drugs. I was hanging around criminals, making poor decisions, selling drugs, hanging around violent people, so I kept getting arrested because I kept making bad decisions. I got more arrested between 16 and 21 before I got addicted to heroin than after. Once I got addicted to heroin, I was like junk. I didn't want to leave the house. Most of my arrests came from poor decision making. And I'm like, oh, now it makes sense. As a young person with an underdeveloped brain, I started smoking weed, and I just kept making poor decisions. And next thing you know, I got myself in a lot of trouble. So, last thing, the weed, by the way, is way stronger than it ever was. I already told you, people are experiencing psychotic episodes because of the weed. Just gotta be careful. Alcohol, everybody thinks it's legal, no big deal. Alcohol kills more people every year than every other drug, including heroin and fentanyl. Alcohol kills more people every year than any other drug. So don't get it twisted. Just because it's legal, your government don't necessarily have your best interests. This is a financially driven nation. Marijuana being legal is financial, right? So don't get caught up in the, it's legal, this is legal, kills a lot of people. Oh man, I might just need new batteries. All right, bang, 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 vaping's bad. Don't do vaping. Bang, 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 bang. Side effects, shortness of breath. So they say, why? Don't just tell me not to do it. I don't know, could get a peptic ulcer, diarrhea, nausea, tremors, joint pain, indigestion, throw off your heartbeat, blood pressure, blood clotting, lack of concentration. The salt mix sucks all the water out of your body, leave you dehydrated. Infections, sleep disturbances, dizziness, lack of focus. And those are all symptoms. To be honest with you, I care less about all that. Why I say you should consider not vaping is because of the dopamine. Vaping releases big bursts of dopamine, and then you become addicted to the bursts of dopamine, and after a while, the vaping's not going to do it for you, and something else may be appealing to you. That's the real why, but these are the medical side effects. Okay? Pouches. A lot of people are on these now. The Zins, the smokeless tobacco, super dangerous, same side effects, bad for your heart, cause mouth cancer, everything else. Self-esteem. 2 more minutes. You guys are doing great. Simple as this. People with positive self-esteem are less likely to make dumb decisions because people that are strong are not influenced by others. I act like I was cool and I act like I was tough, but I was a crash dummy. I would do whatever the cool kids were doing because I cared about what people thought about me. So I think good prevention work, again, is about building self-esteem. If you're strong with whoever you are, good, bad, or indifferent, you're okay with your flaws, you understand you're perfectly flawed, right? You don't care what other people think, and you can do your own thing. I was super influenced by other people. People with positive self-esteem are less likely to make bad decisions around drugs and alcohol. Some things we can do to lift our self-esteem: hang around positive people, practice positive self-talk. I read a positive motivational thing every single morning and volunteer, find opportunities to give back. I don't know if any of you have ever volunteered, and I know it sounds corny because I had no interest in helping humans. But like, I lived such a selfish life. I made money, I sold drugs, I was violent, I was a lot of things. And when I got into recovery, like you see a lot of people get out of jail and they give back and they do volunteer work. There's a reason for that. It's not just community service. It's because helping others lifts the spirit. It helped me feel like better about myself. And you can do that now. Young people take on projects and help people in their community. You feel better about yourself. People that feel good don't need drugs and alcohol. Here's a hit about recovery. In recovery, here's the key. You have to get to a place where you have a life that you don't want to escape from. Right? Because if your life still sucks, and you still have anxiety, depression, you hate everybody, you're not okay, always going to go back to drugs and alcohol. Recovery is about, how do I get to a place where I'm at least okay? Like, people still die, the economy's crazy, we're at war, all this stuff, but I'm okay. I don't need drugs and alcohol anymore, I'm okay. It's okay. Some days are good, some days are but I'm okay. That's what recovery is about, and that's what prevention is about. Helping young people get to a place where they're okay. They don't need to escape. Some of that's environmental, and some of that is personal. Last slide. If you haven't come up with a plan yet, I strongly suggest you have a plan. Yeah, you guys hate that last one, right? I love the last one. It's the last slide, I promise. We're done. We're almost done. I'm going to get into it. So 1, have a plan. If someone comes up to you and catches you off guard and you're just like, there, you're going to freeze up, you might do it. But if you're like, nah, I'm good. Nah, I'm into sports. Nah, addiction runs in my family. Nah, I already got anxiety. Whatever it is, whatever your excuse is, you're locked and loaded. You're practiced. You know what to say. You're not going to freeze up when someone rolls up on you. So that's 1. Role playing is cool. I know it sounds corny. Maybe the school can do it as a project. But like, you'd be a few students and someone comes up to you as the drug dealer, as the cool kid offering whatever. And you got to have a plan and know what to say. Because if you're not prepared, you might freeze up like I did. That's great. 2, you can be like, nah, I don't want to, but like, we can still go play football, let's go play basketball, let's play video game, whatever. Like, offer something alternative. You could like swerve on them and be like, no, I don't want to, but we can go do this, right? Because just saying no will ostracize you. You'll be the lamest cat ever. You can't just say no and run away. Like, that doesn't work. You have to be like, nah, I'm good. Well, here's why. Well, let's do something else, right? Be prepared. Be slick with it. Don't get caught off guard. And the last one is actually the most powerful one, even though you probably don't like it. If someone comes up to you, I tell parents, buy drug tests, buy breathalyzers, put it in the house. You tell your parents, I don't put it in the house. If someone comes up to you and is like, hey, you want to try this or that? Like I would, but my mom, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, all right? She heard this dude Kevin Rosario speak. She thinks I'm gonna shoot heroin. She thinks I'm gonna die. There's drug tests and breathalyzers all over the house. If I come home with one red eye in the peak of allergy season, she's gonna drug test me. And if I get caught, the Wi-Fi's gone, the iPhone's gone, the PS5's gone, the car's gone, whatever's gone. And then I'm like, bro, that sucks. And just leave you alone. That's all I got, guys. You've been great. Thank you so much.